think people want peace without making peace. There's a difference between peacekeeping and peacemaking. Peacekeepers in relationships avoid everything.
Right.
They don't speak up. They don't confront. They don't argue. They don't voice their needs. Peacemakers engage.
Right.
And there's peace on the other side of the confrontation. There's peace on the other side of understanding one another through conflict. So I think that's the difference. Again, like, you build capacity, you build intimacy, you build connection through making peace.
Right.
Which is an active engagement in the conflict required to obtain the peace.
Right.
Whereas peacekeeping is just avoiding.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Running.
Staying distracted from the confrontation, hoping that it'll go away. Clap. I didn't get a good clap that time. But anyways, welcome to the 8 Domains podcast. We have an amazing, exciting guest. This is the first time we've done this.
Yeah.
Emily Thorndike, LCSW, from TikTok.
Yep.
Is basically how
From
I know her.
TikTok,
But really from New York City.
Yep.
She's in private practice. Emily and I met on TikTok. So I saw actually the first thing that I saw that grabbed my attention and caused me to follow you, I think, was your post about there needing to be research done on small town moms after the catfish.
Right.
So you and I talked about it on that episode with Alex, where we did kind of a breakdown of the high school catfish.
Too. Yeah.
And then, so then after that episode, where all three of us in the room had seen your TikTok,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we should just, I don't know. I'm going to be the random guy on the internet who says, hey, I'll fly you to Nashville. And,
I know.
You know,
like,
blah, blah, blah.
Say less.
So this is a experiment, you know? And so we both decided to go live as well. And if we see a comment or a question, maybe we can try to, you know, interact. But for the most part, we're just going to have a conversation. So 8 Domains podcast is kind of a hybrid of just general meandering conversation. So I don't want us to feel like we're stuck within these, you know, guide rails of this 8 Domains model. But I do want to get into the practice of starting our podcast with the same question for every guest.
Okay.
And so here it is. You're going to have to bring that mic 4 to 6 inches from your face.
Okay. I'm better.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
Okay. There we
So
go.
the starting point to every podcast is this. Emily Thorndike, how do you want to experience yourself?
How do I want to experience myself? Wow. I didn't know that question was coming. How do I want to experience myself? You mean in this podcast or in general?
No. So when we talk about the 8 Domains as a coaching model,
right?
That question is the starting point to helping people define the values for how their life is going to go.
I see.
So how do you want to experience yourself? And then from whatever answer, so spontaneous, you don't have to overthink it, just kind of like, you know, wherever it goes, that kind of is the launch point to the broader conversation that we're about to have.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, I'll just tell you what comes to mind, and I'm jumping all the way at the end of life, but like in general, like the way I want to experience myself and like experience the world is like helping people. I know that's kind of the cheesy line, but I really believe like at the end of the day, when like looking back on like my career and my own life, it's not so much about like what you're doing, but how you make people feel. And I feel like I bring that into like my work, but also just my personal life, even like navigating, like having this conversation with you guys. I feel like these are the interactions I want to look back on. And so I don't know exactly what category of like the 8 domains it might fall into. Not that that's necessarily like super important to identify, but just I feel like I just have to like navigate my life, like using my morals to like pick things above myself, to be honest. I mean, I think current events is maybe the easiest example of like, I said to my own therapist, like, I'm not someone who can stay silent about certain things. It's not something I can like sleep at night with. So I feel like I almost like how I want to experience myself is like through others. So yeah, I guess that's the answer that comes to mind.
All right, so now I'm going to pick on it a little bit.
Yeah, please do. Break it apart.
So how do you know that you're in line with that?
It's a good question. I honestly think it's like my moral instincts.
Okay.
I think for me, and maybe it's because like experiencing certain things in my own personal life, but I've worked, majority of my career has been with like the sickest of the sick, right? Like inpatient and people with like, acute mental health issues. So I feel like I have like a good general grasp on like some of the things that people are going through, or like for me, right, I'm such like an empath, aren't we all in this field? But like I really have a hard time not feeling and envisioning other people's pain, especially because I've seen so much of it. You hear so many stories, and I'm like an analytic relational therapist. So I truly believe like one of the things I analyze is how the patient's making me feel, but I truly believe I feel what they're feeling too. And so for me, I feel like the way that I know that I'm kind of aligning with what I'm talking about is when like my instincts are directing me, like this concept of like not being silent. My instincts will tell me like, no, I need to not stay silent on this. And sometimes it's like, this isn't the time to communicate, maybe because I'm too emotional, or this topic, whatever it is. But I think for me, it's just like my instincts, even like decisions I make in my practice, maybe a example of like, am I going to take on someone pro bono or sliding scale? Like, I feel like for me, it's just, and it's probably like to my detriment sometimes that I'm so focused on other people, but I feel like I just follow my instincts based on what's in front of me and learn as you go, right?
So a lot of times when someone's answering this question, and by the way, it's not a question that a lot of times people don't generally consider this question of like, how do I want to experience myself?
Yeah.
We tend to usually be focused on how do I want other people to experience me. So the way that you just described it was, I want to be helpful.
Right.
How do you know that you're in line with that value? It's not that the value is not legitimate. I mean, I think it's a noble, admirable value to want to experience yourself as being helpful.
Right. I'm a martyr.
And then how do you do that? How do you verify that? So that's where the shift from in the 8 domains occurs. It's a move away from how do other people experience me to how do I experience myself? Because and you said a word several times, and the word was instincts. That kind of comes into a connection with your intuition, self-awareness, and then also kind of I think a sense of personal responsibility of if something is popping up in your intuition, if something is compelling you internally to act or to speak, then it seems like there's a value of yours is to honor those instincts, which has nothing to do with how other people experience you. It has everything to do with how you're experiencing yourself in your own internal dialogue and how you react to those thoughts and emotions. So the question is, how do I want to experience myself? Well, it sounds like you want to experience yourself as someone who is aligned with your convictions, someone who is aware of those like you said, instincts, and someone who honors those parts of you that need to be expressed and
absolutely.
Right?
Nailed it. Yeah. And like that's my personality too. Like I think a lot of my work, I feel very fortunate. It is just like my personality plays into like my style and like just how I am, as a therapist. And just me outside of the therapy room is pretty much the same. And like if my family was here, they'd be like, yeah, she's the only daughter and she's outspoken. And I always have been. But yes, I agree with your summary of it, of just, I've had to work on it because sometimes it gets me in trouble that I speak up. I'm not really scared of people in a lot of ways. And so I will say things other people might not. I might say them in ways that are more direct, that other people might not. Sometimes that doesn't land well. I can be too intense sometimes, but I think that comes from like this intense instinct of like speaking up and living out this way that I feel like I need to experience myself. So yeah, I have had to do skills, like do my own therapy to harness it and understand it. which is an interesting topic. I actually do my own analytic therapy. So, a lot of that is just about analyzing yourself, understanding your own experiences, understanding your own biases, all that type of stuff. So I feel like I also have a good grasp on recognizing, like, when am I projecting and separating myself from the patient, like all of that type of stuff. So I feel like, honestly, that's one of my biggest skills, especially in this context of, like, am I speaking out and speaking up because of, like, me? Is this really about, like, the message, the people, right? Like, how narcissistic am I being, right? That I need to speak up and stand up to people. That's something I have to keep in check, because I do get, it's cathartic for me to say it. So that's where, like, the analysis comes in of, like, how emotional is this? How much is this for me? Why do I feel like I need to speak up to people so much sometimes? Like, I could go back in time and tell you why that is, but yeah.
Have you heard of the skill WAIT?
Is it similar to maybe the DBT stop skill, where it's like, I always say to patients, I'm like, it's kind of one of the obvious ones of stop before acting.
WAIT is an acronym for why am I talking?
Interesting. I like that a lot.
To just stop, use the stop skill, totally. And then in that proceed mindfully part is to ask yourself the question, like, why am I about to speak?
Exactly.
Is it to truly stick up for someone, to promote a cause that I believe in?
Right.
Or is it to draw attention to myself, to make myself look good, to be combative, to rage bait? What is the motivation truly behind why am I talking?
Exactly.
And I think that's a good skill. But you bring up your work with clients in DBT, and when we talk about people with borderline personality disorder, one of the things that causes a lot of the dysregulation is that it's their lack of control in other people's experience of them, or the other people's reactions to them.
Right.
And so that question, I think, is also a pertinent one in work with borderline, is like 100%. Getting people oriented to, and I have one of my longest standing clients. I've had her for, I don't know, almost 5 years at this point. It's a virtual client, severely borderline PTSD as far as symptomology goes, but the progress that she's made is in becoming better connected to the experience she wants to have with herself, despite the experience other people seem to be having. And that usually comes into, like, whenever she gets this impulse to, as she says, go for people's throat. That's the impulse, is to go for people's throat. But then, is that how you want to experience yourself? Do you actually feel better? Or do you just feel like, and she's done enough of the work now to where she can recognize, like, no, every time I go for people's throat and I cuss and I scream and I threaten and I, call and I harass and I, all of these things, she's like, I just feel like shit the entire time. And then afterwards. So that question has become really important in my work with her, of like, okay, how do you want to experience yourself when your sister is not behaving the way you want her to, or when the guy isn't giving you the attention that you're trying to get from him, and things like that.
No, I love the way you described that. And I will say, like, sort of on that same topic, that's part of what I talk to other clinicians about. Sometimes I'll talk, whether I'm supervising or not, just about interacting with someone with borderline personality disorder or doing the treatment. To be honest, a lot of clinicians, and I think it's more training and I understand the complications, they think it's about them, or that, they have a reaction of, like, being offended and, oh, this person's, like, mistreating me perhaps, or, I don't understand why the intense emotions are coming at me, which I can understand that, but it becomes very much like I'm being attacked. And I say to people, I can understand it's hard to know how to respond sometimes, and you do really need that training. But within this, you have to understand the person does not like this. A lot of clinicians will say, people with BPD are so behavioral. They're so attention seeking. And I made a TikTok about this where I said, like, why wouldn't they seek attention from the person who is supposed to give it to them? Mind you, the person who's also getting paid to do it. But it's always, I find majority of clinicians are arguably offended by their actions. And just because you don't understand something doesn't mean, there's an assumption that they enjoy it. And I don't think that that's true. you see someone acting out in a way that's hard for you to understand. Do you imagine how that must feel to be that desperate to bang your head against a wall or, throw a temper tantrum in front of a bunch of adults? Like, the last thing you do is want to shame someone after that, because like you said, they are already feeling guilt and shame. I think that's one of the most difficult things to navigate with BPD, is that inevitably that's the cycle, because also people think that they are bad people. They feel guilt and shame, which is, the definition of someone who's not a narcissist, right? Like they feel those emotions. And so I always remind people, like, inpatient unit, people will get pissed. They want to punish them, I don't like a lot of the responses. And I'd be like, you really think, like, why are you so offended? But also, you really think that this person's like enjoying this? You're not going to be like compassionate about how desperate you must be to do these things. So,
and I think that it's a very difficult skill set to demonstrate as a clinician.
100%.
To have the enough rational detachment from it,
right,
to where you're not enabling,
right, exactly,
but you're not rewarding,
right,
and at the same time your boundary is reasonable,
right,
and it's
100%.
So you're not reactive to it, which is exactly what the behavior is designed to do. Exactly. It's feeding into this lack of skillfulness that this person has,
right?
And I think that's the important thing for people working with BPT to understand, is those assumptions at the beginning of DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, right, is like everyone is doing the absolute best that they can with what they have to access to.
Exactly.
Everyone is doing the best that they can. In this moment right now, I am doing the best that I can to communicate with the faculties and resources and energy and caffeine that I have running through my body. And I want to do better.
Yeah. And I can.
I can if I have better access to skills and resources and energy and caffeine and things like that.
Totally.
So I think that's the thing that you got to understand if you're going to work in that field.
Absolutely.
Is those assumptions matter.
100%.
And the assumption is like, oh, this temper tantrum that I'm labeling as a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
That's the absolute best that they can do right now.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And even if they are telling you that you've contributed, right? Like maybe on the inpatient unit, I might have a patient upset with me if I only had time to spend 15 minutes with them that day, or, the day before I spent 30, right? It's that patient might contact me or my staff and say, I'm so mad at you. You did this to me, right? You did this to me. And clinicians, I can understand it, have a hard time not saying, no, I didn't, right? Like falling for the attack. Like if you can know in your truth that I didn't have time for that, and that's a reasonable thing that the patient needs to adjust to, why take on that attack? That's not what it's about. The patient's telling you, I have an attachment to you. I want to spend time. I want to have a relationship with you that I don't get to have with other people. And, that's reasonable. And sometimes people can't provide, exactly what you want in the moment. But clinicians, I think, have a hard time not being defensive about the attack, which the attack is direct. They will tell you, you did this to me, and you know that you didn't do the thing, but something happened. So yeah, but I agree. I love, another one of the DBT concepts I really think is great is that you can't treat patients like they're fragile. BPD patients need to understand, if you go you're struggling to have relationships, right? How patients treat you is a version of how they treat other people. So now when the patient's upset because they need more time with somebody, they're going to attack them and say, you did this to me, which a layperson who's not trained as a clinician will say, no, I didn't, and I don't want to deal with this, right? So, you have to teach patients with BPD that this is the social norm. When you attack somebody, it's going to be hard to have a relationship with them. So how do I help you communicate what you actually needed? Or how do you, say it was hard for me to not get to spend as much time with you and I wanted to, right? And then I say, yeah, that sucked for me too. I wish, sometimes I'll be like, yeah, this place sucks. They have me too busy. I want to spend time with you, right? All my case management stuff. I'd be like, they make me call your mom, okay? I want to hang out with you. But, you know, I love that one. Like, don't treat patients like they're fragile. You need to, like, give them the hard truths about how the world works with, like, people and relationships.
Yeah, and part of that is modeling those boundaries of, you know, that I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I had with working in, you know, we were talking before we were on camera about this past experience that I had working at this therapeutic residential community, to where we took the most extremely, you know, mentally and behaviorally dysregulated people out of long-term institutions and put them in apartments. And then, you know, they're all of a sudden they've been patients for the last 2 or 3 years, or longer. Like our first resident that our first member we brought out of the institution had lived in an institution for the last 20 years. And then all of a sudden we're just planting him in an apartment. He's supposed to act like a person and not a patient. And so obviously they're going to struggle, and obviously they're going to struggle behaviorally because they don't know what else to do, right?
Exactly.
And so, but the boundaries need to be there. So I remember, you know, I was telling you a story of one of our members. When she started feeling some sort of way, she would go out in the parking lot and find a screw and swallow it. Well, what is the function of that? Well, the function of that is everyone rushes to her and checks on her, or we assign a one-to-one with her to make sure that she doesn't have the opportunity, but she's going to do it anyways. And then, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, put hands on her and fight her to keep her from swallowing stuff?
I know.
And so then the boundary becomes like, I really hope you don't do that. And if you do, here's what we're going to do. And then it's just like this emotionless kind of like, you know, whenever, you know, this same person had a problem with self-injury, you know, cutting and things like that. And so then it became this, you know, we had to train people not to like react harshly or with a lot of energy. And just to be like, it looks like you need to clean that up. Here's a first aid kit.
Exactly.
You know, it just kind of like
neutral.
Be a bit neutral and detached from it while setting the boundary that like, I'm not going to play into the energy that you're trying to get me to play into.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And Marsha Linehan talks about that in her book, Building a Life Worth Living, where she was in the institution and the doctor was going on a 2-week vacation. Have you read the book?
I've definitely read the book. It's been a while.
Yeah. So it's one of the only stories that really sticks out to me in the book, to where he's going to go on a 2-week vacation and she starts saying,
this is a great example.
There's no way I'm going to be able to not kill myself if you're not here for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
And he essentially says, there's no way for me to stop you from doing that, whether I'm here or not.
Literally.
And I hope that you're here when I get back in 2 weeks.
Yep. That's my only rule, actually. I say that, like, my only rule for my patients is keep yourself alive. Especially as an outpatient therapist, I will say I'm good at screening, because people with severe BPD who are struggling with suicidality just deserve more support than I can give as an outpatient virtual therapist. But my patients know that, and I believe this is kind of a controversial thing, but I believe that any person gets to decide if they kill themselves or not. Like, that's dark, right?
Whether you believe it or not, it's the reality.
It's the truth.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
That if a person does not want to be here and they have made that decision and they are willing to follow through on it, there's not a thing anybody else is going to be able to do. That doesn't mean that we should be discompassionate or hands off or not take all the preventative measures to intervene that we. But at the end of the day, you know, I've had clients die by suicide, and
you have to accept.
I had to accept the fact that was not my fault. That was not something that I could have prevented.
No, exactly. And I just don't believe that it's almost ethical for therapists. And I understand there's some nuance here, but just generally, I don't believe it's correct to try to take that decision away. Like, it interferes with autonomy, right? Like, and that should be the goal of every therapy, to help somebody be autonomous. And so, like, with that being said, I also have an interesting, granted, I've been so exposed to self-harm, like, I've seen it all a million times over. So, you know, I would have the same approach too. To be honest, if somebody's swallowing a screw with me in the outpatient there, you know, I'm going to be pretty chill and be like, okay, so you should probably go to the ER, right? Like, I mean, I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't believe you did that, and, you know, whatever. It's just going to, I remember there was one patient on the inpatient unit. We had such a good relationship, and unfortunately, she also did end up taking her life. But I remember she came on the unit once. Mind you, irreverence is a really effective strategy in DBT, right? Like, the act of sort of using humor and trying to almost sort of shock them with some of it, which like I loved this patient. She came in after suicide of drinking bleach, right? And we're having a great therapeutic relationship and we are dealing with it. But I say to her, I'm like, girl, why was that? I was like, that sounds like uncomfortable. Like I don't know. It's like they'll be like, I'm gonna drink shampoo, and I'll be like, you're literally just gonna get a stomach ache. Like sometimes I'm just like, if you want to do that, go for it. You want to cut yourself, you're gonna have to, get treatment for it after. It's not gonna help you, but if you want to, but like that's your choice. At the end of the day, keep yourself alive. Because you signed up for therapy with me, right?
Yeah. So do you mind talking a little bit about what it was that drove you into that specific field?
Yeah, it's actually kind of an interesting thing that I also talk with my patients about where like I just was a young person who was just focused on like getting into adulthood in terms of like the structure of like you go to high school, then you go to college, and then you start your career. So until I left college, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I always knew I wanted to work with people. I'm not meant to sit behind a desk all day. So I knew that. But I got out of college not knowing at all what I really wanted to do. And so I was actually fortunate enough to work with like a career coach to help me just figure out the options. She had a client who's actually one of my really good friends now who was working at this hospital, McLean Hospital. And my career coach was like, hey, this is kind of an out there job, but my client loves it, and maybe, you just want to try things. So I was like, no, whatever. So, I did the interview. It's interesting because, like, I'm trying to not, like, smile and be patronizing, but I can't help to some degree where, like, I did the interview on the unit. It was, like, the most acute the unit's ever been, which was good for my career eventually. But it's like I did this interview, I get a tour of the unit, there's 2 people in restraints, and it's like the full thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna work here, right? It's like, okay. Mm-hmm. So I honestly got started into all of this, just taking that job and being like, technically the people on the bottom do the most. And so I was basically a crisis intervention counselor. And so that, I always say, I feel like I jumped in the deep end and figured out everything else. So to be honest, it just was kind of like random. I just did this job interview. I thought it was interesting. And then it went from there. So yeah, kind of random.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because, everyone's kind of journey into a helping profession, so many times it's like the wounded healer type of thing of like, oh, well, I grew up in the system, or my mother was severely ill, or whatever. Yeah, so anyways, that's what I would have guessed, but yeah,
well, there is some of that. And like, I'll say, like, I just feel like I had some, just like, I'm like, I'll be careful with like sort of what I share, just because some of it's family stuff of just, like you grow up with certain things and things can become like more comfortable for you, right? Like there's some of the things that are normalized for me, which is why I don't have certain reactions. But I, so I have my own, I'm much more aware of my wounds now, and that's through a lot of my analytic therapy that I do. So it all makes sense to me now. So I think it definitely was a subconscious driver, but I do have a family member as well who has particular mental health struggles that don't relate to like personality stuff at all, but they actually received treatment at my hospital that I worked at. So there was like that connection. And so I'm definitely, there's a lot that I came to understand after, but that's also part of like, when I look back on my life, I almost feel like I dissociated through a lot of it until after college. And I'm like, well, now I got to figure out what I'm actually doing. And so it's like you have to go back and analyze like your dissociative years and be like, now I'm much more clear at like 34 than I was back then at 22 of like, what's my stuff? Why am I in this, right? So I have like such a better idea now. But at the time it was like, it's so crazy to me how it all happened. And now I've landed here. And I guess that's why I earlier mentioned, like, I have patients who will be like, I don't know what I'm going to do. They're young. And I'm like, listen, I didn't either. But, you'll figure it out, right? Like that self-disclosure, that can make sense sometimes. So I truly had no idea. But in hindsight now, it's like, oh, I can tell you all these things.
Yeah. Hindsight is beautiful because I am 43.
Yeah.
And I didn't get my clinical license until I was 38. I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me a long time to kind of like land on what I'm in my second career.
Yeah.
And it just, I think I grew up kind of being asked along the way, like, what are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to be when you grow up? And I, my particular situation, I didn't have an answer for that because like I didn't have a concept of being older.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have an idea of like, oh, I have these dreams and these ideas for myself. It's kind of like whenever in my previous career as a minister, we would go on these mission trips, and I went to Guatemala to this orphanage, and it was, you talk to the teenagers in this orphanage who have lived there,
right?
And they've experienced trauma and abandonment and neglect, and like you ask them like, what do you aspire to be? Every single one of them said architect.
Interesting.
They had no idea.
Yeah.
It's just almost like a canned scripted response to appease the white person who's asking them this question that is a question of privilege.
Yeah, so true.
What do you want to be when you grow up is a question of a privileged experience of being able to consider that one day you will be older.
No, exactly.
Or you'll get to do whatever you want.
Yeah, that you get to choose.
And that it won't be hard, right? It's like some things aren't possible for so many people.
Right. Right. And so I think telling people who are younger, 21, 22, like I've got a 17-year-old and he has like a vague concept of maybe what he would want to do when he grows up, but honestly, like I would be surprised if over the next 5 to 10 years that completely changes.
Yeah, totally.
And it probably should.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a really interesting book. I made like maybe a post or two about it, but my patients sort of put me onto it, and it's called The Defining Decade. It's all about your 20s and how, it's by, I think her name's Meg J. She has a PhD in practice, and she works with like young adults, and it's like, collection of her research and all of that. But, according to her, and it seems legit, your 20s are like, what defines what's next, right? And it talks about, especially these days, a lot of people in their 20s are kind of like, this is my time to be young. And it's, that's all true. But like, you identify your adult identity in your 20s. And, I think that's the time. It's an interesting book because it just notes all of these things that you need to be mindful of in order to figure out like who you're going to be, where you're going to be, who your people are going to be, all that.
And so that beginning question that I asked of how do you want to experience yourself?
Yeah.
There's dimensions to that. So if I'm in my 20s, I might want to experience myself as rich in experience of saying yes to as many things as possible, of maybe financially, having fun and really almost being kind of hedonistic in traveling and food and entertainment, and like, okay, that's all great. And what type of experience do you want to have with yourself in your 40s?
Yeah.
Because the decisions you're making now are going to impact that version of you.
Yes.
And now that I'm in my 40s, I'm asking the question, what type of experience do I want to have with myself in my 60s and my 70s?
No, for sure.
Because it's all connected to this sense of who am I going to be, regardless of how other people experience me. I'm going to be stuck with me every single day for the rest of my life. And so there's a version of me, hopefully 30, 40 years from now, that is going to be trapped in the consequences of my choices today.
Right. Facts.
And so relationally, financially, recreationally, physically, all of those things that I'm investing in now, in the experience that I want to have now, need to also have a caveat that they need to be good for the guy that's in the future, that is going to be trapped by the type of consequences that I'm choosing today.
Right. No, that's exactly what the book actually says, like verbatim, right? She's like, she's clearly, had a lot of practice, and she talks about like the reason why she thinks the 20s, and she says it doesn't have to be exactly 20 to 30, but she's basically like, you really need to, hone in on those 10 years. Because she's like, I also see countless of people in their 30s and 40s who have regrets and made decisions that are catching up to them. And, and so, the book emphasizes that. I think you're so right of like just continuing it down, the lifespan no matter what. But, they say your 30s and 40s are, what's going to be in that is going to be sort of dictated by your 20s. So it's a really interesting book if you're working with any young adults. It's awesome. I think it really lays things out for them in a way. I have a patient who's, working on just sort of like she has a lot of social anxiety. So I'm worried. I don't want her pace to be so slow, and this book has sort of given us some resource to be like, these are just the things to think about, right? Like, you need to get motivated by fear. If you know that your 30s are going to be dictated by your 20s, let's set a fire under your ass, right? Like, you can't be all lax. Have fun right?
And.
The DBT, not but, and, right? It's like, have fun and take things seriously, find the balance. So, yeah, it's very interesting. But I try to focus on that a lot with my young mid-20s, where it's just like, even women, we're having babies later in life, and that's great, but you still need to be thoughtful if you do want to have kids. Like, we are on a clock, It's just true.
There are realities that need to be agreed with.
Yeah, you just have to think about them. So
you're in your 20s, right?
I am.
Yeah,
I was thinking a lot about,
So how's this resonating?
I think it's really interesting. I kind of like have a counterpoint of like not focusing. Like, yes, your 20s are such developmental, fundamentally like important years, and you find so much of yourself, but like in all of it is in preparation for like the older you, right? Because this is your 20s are the years where you're figuring out your career, and that's like where you're kind of like affirming where you want your future self to be,
right?
But like I feel like there's importance, but it's not as much of an importance as it is to like have that view for every decade, every year. Like, it's important in your 20s, yes, but also like so much is happening later in life. You know, so like the counterpoint I guess I kind of have is like, I'm 27, dating, but like no boyfriend. I'm like just now feeling more established. I have a house, and like just now 27.
Right.
Probably closer to 28. So like all of this is great, and like I've learned so much about myself, but I feel like it's not as like defining, if you will, like, if that makes sense.
It might not feel
if
like
we're
that
tracking
now, too.
and that's true,
and maybe not defining, but it is
influencing
okay, that's fair. I think like my thought process and my like how I'm like kind of thinking of it and like walking through life and how I walk through life with a lot of my clients is like no matter what age, like what is your future self gonna think of this? Like, this is great and this is so important,
right?
It, you know, your decisions make up a lot of like what, you know, is going to happen in your future, whether it's financial. Like, obviously, you know, save your money, don't get too frivolous, right? Obviously, like, don't save to a point where you're like miserable, right? But even like making your day-to-day decisions, like I talked with a younger girl and unpacking a lot about like dating in general and like making sure you choose your partner, but you're also dating for fun, you know, you're also like finding yourself. So like making sure that you're doing this and it's for your future self, not necessarily for you just in your 20s.
No, I fully agree. You know, and I think something that's interesting that I'm thinking about with you, and I'm like, I'm not trying to therapize her a little bit, but I wonder if
go for it.
Part of it is like, you know, from like, again, assumption, but like, I wonder if part of this is that you're doing your defining decade correctly, right? I mean, what you're regurgitating to your patients is exactly the concept, right? It's like holding both things, not forgetting about the other. And, you know, I think that's the balance, right? And maybe it's interesting how it's resonating with you because you're kind of, it seems like you're doing it. And you know,
Well, and I will say that I think my 30s were much more impactful than my 20s were. I made decisions in my 20s that I had to go back and fix in my 30s. And the 30s were were what has set me up. to do what I'm doing now. You know? And now I think my 40s is more of a stable. Which you know, you kind of go back to like any young listeners out there who are listening to this, and maybe you're young-ish in like 28, 29, 30, and you're like, well, shit, they're saying I missed the boat. I didn't pay attention enough in my 20s.
Right.
Trust me, there's still time. Like I'm 43. I still plan on having another 40 to 50 years. And those can be generative years. 100%. They can still be impactful years. And just because I'm, you know, at the halfway point or close to it doesn't mean that, dude, I've still got half left.
No, I think about that all the time. I do the math.
Like, why would I think that I've missed the boat, or
I can you know, like
yes, honestly, the best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago.
Right.
And the next best time to plant a tree is right fucking now. So like,
exactly.
Let's go. And I'm so, yes, I think it's all an and. Yes, 20s are important. Pay attention. Enjoy them. Experience yourself. Explore yourself. Ask those questions. Try new things. Cancel out the people that you know, and the experiences that really don't help you align with the experience you want to have with yourself. And if you're rounding out your 20s and you're like, well, shit, what do I do now? Okay, well, just do that now. Even if you're in your 30s, or even if you're in your 40s. Like, people can reinvent themselves all the time, and that's where we talk about like the domain of recreation comes in. Of how do I want to experience myself as recreating myself. Recreation is just me rediscovering, recreating, reinventing, finding out new things about myself, and that requires you to go try shit. Go try to do things and figure out at all stages of life what you're capable of, what you like, what you don't like, who you don't like, and then build that life worth living according to you. I have to pee.
There you go. Pee break. It happened. It's happened.
It did.
I thought we were going to avoid it because of before, but that's okay. It's your show, so let's check out who might be saying anything. Oh, my dad's in here. Hi, Dad.
Your story is so interesting.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's kind of unique. Like, I don't know, working in that psych hospital was like the coolest thing I've ever done.
I was, okay, as you were saying that.
The best thing for my career.
As you were saying that, before I found Benji. I have like such a dramatic journey through like finding like a good like place. But like before I found him, I got offered a job to work at a jail.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And and it was like so much money. Great benefits. Like, oh, thank you. Great benefits, like a great package. But I would have to work at a jail. And I thought about taking it, but like I find that stuff so interesting. Like the more like I love the word like spicy, like I say all the time. Like it's spicy. So spicy.
It is,
and it makes it like so fun. And when you were talking about, you said something, and you were about how much you liked it, and you're like, but like not to be but it's like your niche. Like I think that I was talking with someone else. Like everyone has their own like as a therapist, like you the more bananas thing. The more you know.
I love that.
Like
that's why I like BPD. Like it's so interesting to me.
You never know what you're gonna get.
Never.
It's so spicy every single day.
So spicy. They are who they are. They're gonna give it to you straight. I love that. Like I love it. I think it's so interesting. I know. I find jails and forensic psych to be so
interesting. I am so
intrigued. Can we interview or have like I guess we can't. I was gonna be like, can we have a serial killer on the next podcast?
Like, a serial killer?
Yeah, I'm like, forensic psych is so interesting to me.
Really?
Yeah, fast. I love true crime. Like one of my dream fantasy jobs, which wouldn't bode into like wanting to be like a mom one day, is like I'd love to be like in the FBI, like behavior analyst. Like I think that's so fascinating. You're gonna see really interesting people in a jail, or on the inpatient unit. To be honest, it's like I'm
so intrigued. Well, as you were like saying that, I was like, I miss like hearing this. I hear like I have spicy. you know,
there's always some spice, but
like I was telling her, before I found you, I got offered a job to work at a jail, and my dad doesn't listen, but I didn't tell my dad.
Oh, you adjusted it? Oh shit, I'm sorry.
Is mine good? Okay.
Well, it's all loose now. Hold on.
Well, just tight.
There we go.
You broke it.
But I got offered the
good?
job, and I didn't tell my dad. I just told my brother. I didn't take it. Obviously, I'm here with Benjamin Holmes. Love it here.
You landed at a good spot.
Right. But I was so intrigued because like every day would be so like exhilarating.
Oh yeah. No, that's what I loved. I mean, that is
Listen,
honestly,
guys, it is not all it's cracked up to be.
No, not
worked in a
not
jail?
the jail part am I talking about. Just inpatient, like the similar no, but I just mean like my own experience of this being like, but yeah, I could imagine like, I do know one clinician who worked in a jail, and it was, I think what was hardest for her was like the lack of resources, right? And the lack of support. You can like really, you're you know, like rehabilitation, right? Like,
Yeah, Kim Kardashian's working on it.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah. Somebody, you know, at least one of these rich people are going to do something with their money.
Yeah.
So are you guys talking about how sometimes you're envious of clinicians who work in these environments to where things are more chaotic and interesting?
I was telling her I was envious of her.
You miss it?
I miss it more than anything.
I don't miss it a fucking day.
Oh, I miss it.
Not for a second.
These fuckers paid me like $52,000 a year to stop. I've fought patients for razor blades.
Oh wow.
Listen,
And won, by the way.
for a season, a whole season, and it was not winter.
Yeah.
I came to work wearing a thick Wilson leather jacket because I was going to get bit.
Oh my God. Yeah.
She was 18.
Okay.
She was on
I
her
haven't dealt with any
18th birthday.
biters. Yeah.
She came to my program,
Okay.
which again, mind you, was a therapeutic residential community, apartment-based living. She had never lived outside of an institution since she was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
On the autism spectrum disorder, also borderline personality,
Yeah.
and every day,
Oh, yeah.
every day she was like coming at me.
Oh, boy.
And so I would just wear this really thick leather jacket, and then because I knew the bite was coming, and so I just put the thing out there. So, anyways, I think it's telling me that it's about to end.
You got to do another live or?
Oh, I gotta solve the puzzle.
Oh, you got to prove that
I gotta solve the puzzle to prove that I'm still here.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just chaos. Like she would get upset.
Like it.
And we had drop ceiling like this and fluorescent lights, and she would just take like coffee cups and just fling them up into the fluorescent lighting.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I don't miss that a day.
Oh, I miss that.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
I'm talking about a flavor of that, to be honest.
Oh, really?
That's some of what I.
Well, like not like
there's a whole spectrum.
There's no security. Like you're going in.
I was the security.
I knew I was safe. And,
Yeah,
you
didn't.
Security. I mean, they're mall cops basically, but they count. They count. And
They
I'd be
were
like, why are you guys here?
person.
Back up. You're making it worse, but you always be ready. But
yeah, I mean, like the general run of the mill, like mental health conflicts and things like that. That was one thing, but like we were in this situation where it was like the most extreme. I'm kind of bashful at even saying this. This same person,
right?
If she wasn't being overtly violent towards other people, and she just felt a certain way, she would take her menstrual fluids and smear them on our walls.
Oh yeah,
I've heard of that.
I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh yeah.
Why would you do that? Stop it.
Yeah.
And then she just had no concept of
right?
Yeah.
Had another fully grown 30-something-year-old woman would strip down naked and go running through the parking lot.
Okay.
This other young lady.
Yeah.
These are the geniuses behind this program that I worked for. They put our office where we treated people during the day in the day program. It was adjacent to a gun shop. And this young, this 18-year-old would get upset, and she would go over there.
Well,
and she would go demanding that they
pictures in there.
No, I'm on more like
FaceTime.
the first time I went over there, like they were kind of cool about it. And they, they just like called the police came over like, hey, your girl's over there, and I would go and de-escalate it. But then the second time I walked into them, guns pulled on her because she had busted one of their displays and was trying to get a gun.
Oh my gosh. They said, come get your girl.
Yeah.
Well, the police were called. And so anyways, it was, so I don't miss any of that. Yeah. My nice little cushy 7 or 8 clients a week that are just in here to talk about their marriages or whatever, talking about values and things like that. Like I'll take that every day over what I had to experience working in that other setting.
Yeah.
I would like that one day a week.
Yeah, no, I would love a balance, to be honest. Like I hear what you're saying. There's such a nice benefit to, not having to worry about or like deal with certain things, right? And there's something, and this is part of why I love BPDs. There's certain things that are so fascinating to me. And I try to always make it clear, I'm not talking about patients and these things as like they're guinea pigs or something, right? It's like, but I think to really figure things out sometimes you do have to almost, I call it zooming out when I'm just looking at something from above to like, figure it out. I mean, right? It's like, what is the story behind somebody who's, smearing their period everywhere? I don't feel like there's something to talk about here. Like, why is my patient banging her head against the wall, right? It's like, the answer is not obvious. I mean, some of it is, but what's the story behind it? How did you get to that coping skill? Who didn't teach you how to regulate? How about that? Boom.
Yeah. And it's like you said, like it's fun too to like help them find answers.
Yes.
Cause like
I like a mystery.
Yeah, cause it's not like this is, I love a spicy client and I love like the chaos sometimes, but like it's fun in the chaos, or like what's fun about the chaos is that you're walking in it with them.
Yes.
And you're helping them find their own answers and like find skills that work for them. Right. And like you're in it with them. You're like a team player kind of, and you're helping them to understand that they're not alone in this. So like what's fun is that you kind of like, it's like a puzzle each day.
100%. I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always trying to solve the case, really. And I usually do, not to toot my own horn. I love analysis. That's why I say I zoom out. Honestly, when I'm in session, I dissociate into therapist version of me. And I think about, honestly, multiple things at once. Even when how we're doing, like I'm totally hearing everything you guys are saying, and I'm thinking like back to my own, right? And it's like, I just think it's interesting to try and, like I said, like, okay, my patient is cutting themselves, right? There's one thing in front of me, but also you get information about the past. Like I said, if somebody's cutting themselves, they didn't learn certain skills earlier in life. Okay, who didn't teach them those skills? Probably their parents, right? Okay, so what was happening there? Why did that happen? That's the treatment. When you can go through that with the patient and be like, here's the behavior, we need to do the skills. But you get the self-compassion from them when you say, you do this thing that doesn't help you because you've had this difficult relationship with your mom who didn't know how to meet you where you were at. And that's really hard for you, right? You tackle both things at once, but I think it's so interesting to do. I love doing multiple things at once, like figuring it out. Yeah. It's so interesting.
It's satisfying.
It is, because you can do it. And they'll tell you, right? They're the ones who would really tell you what their story is, obviously. But
yeah. It scratches an itch.
It does.
One of the things that I stumbled on, so I'm not like in any way other than what I've read and like studied. I don't pretend to be a DBT therapist, but in working with this client who has stuck with me for so long, one of the things that, because they will tell you, and she's told me the whole story, and I've heard the whole story multiple times about mom, about dad, about sisters, about mom's boyfriends, and all these things. And then in the course of treatment, we're years in at this point, and then she'll just be like, why do I think this, or why do I feel this? And I'm just like, we're not surprised anymore.
Yeah,
you have run out of the excuse on being surprised by yourself. Yeah. And so like that was like I didn't mean it to be, but it was like super validating for her, for her to be able to identify like, oh, I don't have to be surprised. Yeah. This is not a new feeling. Right. She's 40 something years old, and she's been dealing with this for, 3/4 of her life at this point. It's just like, it's empowering to be like, oh,
Exactly.
This is no longer surprising that I'm feeling dysregulated. I want to go for this person's throat.
Right.
And it's not surprising because in therapy, we put a narrative, like we put meaning to the narrative.
Yeah.
She could tell the story. And she could tell the story in this super detached way. Like she's like recounting a movie that she watched. But then putting the meaning and connecting her to that emotionally, we're like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you think that way? Why wouldn't you have that reaction?
No, exactly.
But you don't have to. And you don't have to be surprised by it.
Yeah.
And so, that's been a very cool thing to see in one of my borderline clients.
Right. And that's like the primary treatment for like complex PTSD as well, right? It's like the thing is with complex PTSD, there are symptoms that are never going to go away, right? Like their thing is they deal with PTSD episodes, right? Complex PTSD, you had the complex trauma during childhood, so your nervous system develops around that, right? So just like other forms of PTSD, you don't get to get rid of those triggers. You don't get to go back and not have that trauma, affect you. So, right, like the treatment is like, okay, how do we help you manage PTSD symptoms most effectively, right? So sometimes, I can say for me, right, I deal with some of this. And sometimes, like, for example, there's times when I want to go at someone and I have to analyze, I'm wanting to go after the person who did this in the past. It's not really about the person in front of me. And so within that, I still have the reaction. I don't get to turn off my fight mode, unfortunately. It's going to be triggered. But my job when I'm in fight mode is to pause, right? And be like, analyze. Is this about the person from the past? Probably to some degree always, right? But let me analyze the situation because I'm either going to go through with my fight mode effectively, right? Try to use those skills. Or I'm going to analyze and say, this is actually a trauma reaction. And how do you cope with PTSD symptoms? Sometimes it's like sitting your ass in your room and saying like, this sucks. This is a result of this thing that I still hate. And yet my coping in that context is resting, is self-compassion versus let me just act out this fight mode that won't solve anything because this person in front of me is not that person, right? So, that's what I think is so interesting about complex PTSD because it's like you help them figure out their story to manage symptoms that aren't going to go away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the concept that you're bringing to mind is everything that is hysterical is most likely historical.
Yeah. I think that's great. I never heard that one.
Yeah, everything that is hysterical is most likely historical.
I got to write some of this down.
Do it, yeah. I have all these little sayings. Most of my
I guess it's on film, so
most of my therapy is just like these little platitudes. These little sayings,
no, they
metaphors.
Work, though.
Yeah.
They stick with people.
One of the best compliments I ever got from a former client was that my superpower was metaphors.
Yeah, no, they're so helpful.
So yeah, and so what you're saying is exactly what I was trying to get across to my client. She finally got it and took with it was, this makes sense in the context of my story.
Yeah.
This feeling that I'm having, like I'm not just a crazy person right now.
Right.
I'm a person who's had crazy shit happen to me.
Exactly.
And so it all makes sense, and I don't have to continue to do the crazy shit.
Right.
And so that reenactment pattern is also a really important thing to help people understand. Like all of our reenactment patterns of understanding that our brains will repeat what is familiar, even if it's what's damaging or it's unhealthy or it leaves us feeling abandoned or whatever it is. But that is our norm if that is the norm. So yeah, finding out those historical patterns and then discovering ways in which you can interrupt them in real time of like literally just doing whatever is the opposite.
Right. Yep. No, exactly. And that's how you actually, heal relational trauma, right? And that's what I do in my therapy with like complex PTSD patients, right? Is that you want to try to figure out what are they reenacting and how do I enter that in a way that actually would be the healthy thing for them, right? Like a lot of it's parent reenactment. So, on my side of things, it might be, maybe they are seeking me, they're texting me outside of there, right? They're looking for me all the time. That's not a bad thing, right? But I analyze how old they are. Well, this patient's 25 years old. Even if I was their mom, it would not be healthy for me to coddle them, right? So how do I heal the fact that they didn't get enough attention and support, essentially, without doing so in a way that keeps the cycle going, right? So it's like you meet in the middle, you know. I'm going to answer their texts, but, you know, if they're I'm not going to, it's not going to be immediate. It's not going to be, right? It's going to be, so, you know, it's like with complex PTSD, you always want to like use the moments to like do something. Even for me, that's why I'm like, instead of going after the person again, the thing that I'm going to do different to try to break the pattern is doing the opposite. Putting myself in timeout, because I can't be trusted when I want to go for someone. So I have to like really put myself away and hide a little bit. But that's my healing work, is to do differently. So, you know, I think that it's a very I love figuring out like who I am. Who am I?
That's one of the things that I really focus on with my clients, and that's where a lot of the 8 domains, you know, we talk about the insight of defining your values. What type of experience do you want to have with yourself? Oh, that's all fine and good. I want to experience myself as yada yada yada. If you're not doing it though,
right,
then it's nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the doing differently. So one of the things that I say a lot of times with clients is like, your mental health is not defined by what you know, and it's not defined by what you feel, and it's not defined by how things are going in your life. Your mental health is defined. The demonstration of how mentally healthy you are is in how well you're doing.
Yeah.
Are you relating well? Are you treating yourself well? Are you caring for yourself and those around you well? Are you, like, how well are you doing? Even if you don't feel well, even if things are not going well.
Right.
How are you doing?
How are you handling it?
How are you handling
what are your
it?
choices?
And that is, I think that is something that I think there's been this pendulum swung in our field to where we have overemphasized 2 things: how a person is feeling and what that means.
Yep.
And how they need to avoid stressors or manage stressors and find safe spaces and build, you know, environments in which they're not triggered. And but what we're finding is that you can't do that without isolation.
Yeah, exactly.
Without completely retreating from the world, you cannot avoid all the shit in the world that is going to bother you.
Right.
And so what are you left with? You're left with building the capacity to do well in spite of the circumstances around you. And so I think that's what therapy needs to really be focused on. Is yes, the narrative and the insight and the historical perspective is important. And if it doesn't lead you into the development of better skills in order to more effectively handle with greater capacity all the things happening in the world around you, then your therapy is failing you.
Right. Yeah. It reminds me of like the concept of radical acceptance, which it can be so powerful in different ways. And there's 2 things that are coming to mind. I mean, I guess first, it's like I always emphasize like the most important part of radical acceptance is that you don't like what you're accepting, right? People feel like with acceptance, they need to like it and almost approve of it. That's not what radical acceptance is, right? It's accepting reality as it is. And it's interesting because I apply that skill to myself. It's such a hard one, but at some point it clicks, and it's so helpful for me. But I had a really interesting interaction with a patient that really like resonated with the skill from the therapy side of, you know, her mental health is not in a good place because she's in a very competitive grad school program. She moved there. I won't get into whatever. She's not happy there, right? And we started together recently, and when within the first couple sessions, I was like, this sounds like awful. This sounds like our work is harm reduction. We're not, like, you list all these reasons that you're not happy here, and they make sense. Doesn't mean that we can't work through it, but I would be remiss to sit here and tell you this is going to get better. I think the odds are against us that your life situation until you're out of this program is going to be tough. And I'm going to be in it with you. So I was like, I'm in it with you. I'm going to go through this with you and make sure you get through it. But, you know, she said later, she was like, that changed everything for me. Just that you sat there and said that this sucks and almost like gave validation to that. And she was like, that in itself was just flipped everything around for her. And so it's just interesting.
Well, normalizing that. And I think one of the things that I've noticed really, really matters to my clients is whenever I give them the word for what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's dread.
Yeah.
It's not anxiety.
Yeah.
It's dread. People, you know, like I work with somebody who's in med school and you know, that and other other PhD candidates that I've worked with and things like that, and they're in the thick of it and they're just like, it's so fucking hard and I've got to study all the time. I don't have a social life. And they feel this sense of like panic and anxiety. And but when you really dig into it, it's not because they have like self-doubt. They're not sure if they have what it takes. They're not sure if they're going to be able to do it, which is what anxiety is. Anxiety is facing a circumstance to where you are not sure that you have what it takes to meet the demand of that circumstance or that challenge. And so you're panicking like, oh my God, this is going to overwhelm me. Dread is different. These people, they know they have what it takes. They're just looking at what it takes and they're saying, shit, I don't want to do that, but I'm going to. I'm going to do it, but I don't want to do it. That's dread. And so when you're like, just call it dread. Because dread is, again, it's like, yes, I don't want to, but I'm going to, and I hate that I'm going to, but I'm going to.
I have to.
And that changes the whole perspective as opposed to this misidentification with an anxiety disorder that you don't really have. Because you know you can do it. You just don't want to.
Well, and that misidentification also goes with what you were saying with like the not avoiding everything, and accepting things, and like the whole. I watched something and it was about protecting your peace and how it's kind of gotten too far in a way, and like in a sense of protecting our peace doesn't look like just avoiding all the people that we find uncomfortable. Like it's more so of like accepting, like you said, the radical acceptance, not excusing their behavior. Just because you accept something doesn't mean you're excusing what they do.
I think people want peace without making peace. There's a difference between peacekeeping and peacemaking. Peacekeepers in relationships avoid everything. They don't speak up, they don't confront, they don't argue, they don't voice their needs. Peacemakers engage. And there's peace on the other side of the confrontation. There's peace on the other side of understanding one another through conflict. So I think that's the difference. Again, like you build capacity, you build intimacy, you build connection through making peace, which is an active engagement in the conflict required to obtain the peace. Whereas peacekeeping is just avoiding. Staying distracted from the confrontation, hoping that it'll go away.
I talk to a lot of patients too about this skill that I've coined. I call it like the data skill, where sometimes it's helpful too when you you take yourself out of things and collect, data a little bit more versus, like the avoidance of certain things, right? Like, like for example, I guess like the classic one with a lot of dating these days is like, I have patients be like, I was talking to this guy or whatever and he's backed off and now I feel like there's something wrong with me, and that whole spiral, which I get why naturally people go into it. But I try to tell them, like, you can look at this another way, more objectively. Let's gather some data about that person because, first of all, they're doing something to you that's making you question your own self. Data, right? They have taken this action that arguably on paper is not healthy, right? Like that's not, data, right? Like if you start just looking at what even data for yourself, okay, well, I've been consistent, I've done, right? Then it's like, look at that on paper. Are you sure that's someone you want to have a relationship with? Or at the very least, should you be internalizing this about yourself? Because if we really look at it, so you can apply that skill in so many ways, but I love it because it just takes yourself out of it a little bit. It's like, what's actually going on here? Because, in a different way, if I have like a healthy friendship with someone and they come to me and they're like, well, X, Y, and Z is bothering me, I'm going to react differently because I already have data about that friendship that, there's maybe more to understand here than someone who's jumping to a conclusion who I just met, right?
Yeah.
So I love that skill. I love it.
And without that data, you can't really do well. Right. So like two things that I that kind of intersect one another about mental health is, I said earlier, mental health is demonstrated in how well you're doing, but how well you're doing is based off of how well you're agreeing with what is true. what is true about my relationships, what is true about my history, what is true about like, so what is, so if
What's
you're not
fact?
what is fact? Like, what are you agreeing with? If am I agreeing with only the stories that I'm making up in my head that are filtered through my, you know, historical trauma, abandonment, wounds, all of that,
my own
all the
lens.
above? Or do I need to test out this data, ask some questions, really get some perspective, look outside of myself for some, you know, some answers?
Right.
But yeah, when you say data, the first thing that popped into my head was the meeting I had right before this podcast, where I was meeting with another practice and just kind of offering some consultation and looking at their data. So I've developed these tools within, with, you know, Excel tools of tracking data, and I have down to the cent data on billable, you know, all of the data about my company, going all the way back to whenever I was doing it by myself back in 2020. And every week I go back and I have in an Excel spreadsheet every single week of data on how many sessions, what was billed, what was payroll, what were the operating expenses, what was the profit, what, you know, all of this data, because if I don't have that data to go back and look on when we're going through a lean period, like at the end of summer or going through the holidays or around the first of the year when people are traveling, and I will look at the bank account and I'll think, oh my God, we're going bankrupt. I'm going to have to shut the doors. Or I can go back and look at the data and say, by February we're fine.
Exactly.
Or, by September it balances itself out. Like, it's going to be okay.
Right.
But I have to have that objective truth about how this goes, or else I get stuck in my head and I spiral, and I make really shitty decisions in a spiral.
Exactly.
And so having that is such an important thing, of whether or not it's journaling, keeping a record of kind of what your experience is, or just like, I go in to my therapy sessions and my therapist will throw something back at me that I said 6 weeks ago that I completely forgot. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that is what's going on here.
They love doing that, huh?
And I have no idea that I even brought that up. But she's like, oh yeah, you see how that makes sense? I'm like, there's the data point that I was missing.
Exactly.
That took the edge off of this experience that I was having.
Right. Yeah. No, I love it. And yeah, I just find it to be really helpful to apply to like all different things. You know, like really, we tend to be more emotional in relationships. That makes sense, but, you know, DBT wise mind, you need to have the balance of logic and emotion. You know, the data is the logic, right? Like, it's, you don't want to tell people data only, right? Like, you want to make sure that, you know, it's not so logical. But I think, you know, especially this thing like, oh man, that this person did this, so something's wrong with me. That's completely emotion mind. Like, you need to just gather some data to then analyze it, right? It's like, maybe I haven't been as communicative with a friend and they come to me and say, hey, you haven't reached out to me as much. Okay, I'm going to look at the data. Maybe they're right. You know, go back to the text. Oh, shit. Like, you're right. She texted me the last 5 times and these are the dates when right? It's like, okay, I just need to bring in logic before I come back. I'm a good friend, though. You know I'm a good friend. It's like, no, oh, shit. Like, I didn't mean to. Like, this is good. Let's get back on the right track. But it's like sometimes we're just so emotional. We just let's make sure we understand the full situation before going about it.
And you said something earlier about radical acceptance of like, even when you're looking at that data, sometimes that lands us at still being hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
And still being sad and grieving. You know,
aren't entitled to change for us.
Yeah, and so whenever we look at the data and we're like, well, you know, maybe it wasn't necessarily a me problem. I was trying, I was reaching out, and that person just stopped responding, or they weren't meeting me with the same level of vulnerability, and so I need to accept that, and that acceptance doesn't mean that I feel good about it. You know? It just means that I'm going to accept it, and then I'm going to behave as though that is the truth now. So if I've got a friend who's distancing from me and I sense that distancing and that's objective, I can go back and look at the text and be like, oh, I've been the person to reach out the last dozen times and I'm getting very short, you know, non-intimate responses. Okay. I'm going to accept that, because if I don't accept that and if I don't proceed as though that is the truth of our dynamic right now, I'm going to keep pressing in. I'm going to become anxious. I'm going to make a fool of myself. I'm going to...
you feel worse.
And then I'm going to chase this relationship. And or I could have just been like, hey, seems like he's distancing.
Yeah.
Or seems like she's not interested.
That sucks. And
I think that's where so many, like, because that's such a hit to our ego.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? Like, I've never been a young girl in the dating scene.
God bless.
Yeah.
But apparently when young ladies in the dating scene stop responding, or they set a boundary like, hey, I don't really want to entertain this anymore, guys really have a hard time accepting that.
Yeah. Like, well, I didn't like you anyways, and screw you. Like,
right. Instead of just being like, drama. Oh, okay, that's good data. Thank you for giving me that data. I can move on.
Yeah, exactly.
They end up making themselves out to be these insecure, fragile assholes.
No, exactly.
Libra men. No, wait a minute. Libra men are the right
Gemini
ones.
men.
Gemini men. I'm sorry. Male Geminis. That was a whole nother podcast back a few weeks ago, to where she's looking for single Libra men.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
if you know any.
I don't know if you want any of the ones that I know. That the East Coast is different.
Yeah.
But I don't know the caliber of men out here, but it's a lot.
Probably the same.
Yeah. I mean, I work with young adults only, and I only work with females or anybody who identifies as like non-binary, but the majority, like dating, I mean, the data's there too. Like, everything's shifted, and it's just really hard. So like, I give patients that feedback too, where I'm like, 90% of you guys are in the same boat, like kind of that validating of the radical acceptance of like, this is really hard. I mean, I think obviously dating, it represents trying to soothe loneliness, trying to seek companionship, right? And so it's like, it's not just, there's such a bigger meaning behind it, and so it feels so much more existential for these patients. And the thing is like, I tell them straight, I'm like, I don't have the answer. Like, I am in this same thing. I know what you're talking about, and this is like an event in time. I don't I don't have the answer, but almost like sometimes the only thing you can do is like validate the reality. It's like the odds are against you, it's still possible, and like you can't get discouraged. Like, that's the data, right? Like, the data actually says that you are amongst a majority. So despite this being painful, you have to accept that unfortunately this is more about the times, right? And but yeah, it's brutal out there. That's like the main thing. And it's hard because I don't have the solution, right? And so majority of my patients are experiencing that.
What is the solution?
Well, I guess the solution
would
be trying to figure out why there's such this apparent issue with dating being successful, right? And that's why I don't, right? The answer is so vague.
So
I don't
what is
even
successful
know.
dating?
People, I think,
finding a relationship at the end.
So marriage, or just like stability, or?
I would say stability, because marriage doesn't always mean stability.
Sure.
I would say secure attachment too,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, that's where, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but more just like, I find that that's what my patients are struggling with the most. Not even the end game, but how do I enter a relationship with someone where I feel secure, and for whatever reason, it's like compatibility, as I would say. And there's, I think, there's such a divide right now between gender, and you can argue that both sides of the fence have something legitimate. I don't like the description of it's male loneliness epidemic. That feels too victim-y to me, and maybe that's my bias being a woman. But in reality, young men are going through, things are shifted. Women are, there's ego issues, there's daddy issues, there's all these reasons that young men's egos are triggered. Like, and so do I think they're managing that well? No. I also think there's a lot of women who are extreme feminists who are doing nothing but keep contributing to the divide. When you just sit there and say, well, men are awful, men suck, I get what they're saying. And if you want to end up with a man, you can't villainize him. Like, they will never work out that way. So that's what I see. It's like there's two separate things going on. There's a social construct that's being changed because of gender equality, in my opinion. And it's an unprecedented thing. That's part of why I don't know how to sort of, I think it's harder to find like somebody who's going to match what you're seeking these days, as I understand. It's hard to get the ball rolling with someone. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, but I think it's like, from my own experience and like from client experience, all of that, yes, but also the lack of communication is genuinely insane, I could get on the soapbox and stay on it all day long. But it's like, it's one side of like not being able to communicate fully what you're looking for,
right,
and being able to say that with confidence and standing 10 toes down on that, right? Like, I'm looking for this,
right?
Whether you meet it, awesome. If you don't, also awesome. I'm not gonna change what I'm looking for. And then from like that opposite,
right?
Like, I get in my from my experience, it would be from like the guy experience of like them either not communicating that as well, them like just not being able to communicate in general, like whether that's like in-person communication, whether that's texting, and then there's like this whole other aspect of like social media and like what does it look like, and then like it's so multifaceted. But I think like the bottom line is like everything you said, but the lack of communication.
No, I think, and like the never-ending options of communication.
Like
there's too many ways to communicate. Like I don't even, but yeah, I don't have the solution when it comes up in therapy, and like, you know.
I have thoughts.
Yeah.
As a 43-year-old married man.
Yeah. Give us your insight.
So whenever I'm working with people who are dating, again, we go back to the original question: how do you want to experience yourself as a partner? So the answer to what am I looking for is often found in that question.
Right.
I'm looking for someone that will help me become a parent. Help me build a life from the ground up. I'm looking for partners, to be a partner, someone that I can be flirtatious and playful with, someone that I can be my full whole self around without being criticized, judged, or asked to edit who I am at a personality level. Someone who I can communicate openly with in a safe way, to where what I'm saying will not be weaponized against me later on. Like someone I can be vulnerable with, essentially. Like these questions are missed because we're so focused on what we want to get out of another person.
Exactly.
I want this other person to make me feel a certain way. Which is a byproduct of I'm going to show up the way that I want to show up, and that is going to be so effective at eliminating people that do not have the right type of compatibility with me. So the moment I'm showing up the way that I want to show up, and I'm expressing my likes, my dislikes, my quirks, my idiosyncrat, whatever the word is, or whatever, my full personality is on display. And the moment a person can't accept that, or they shit on it, or they make me feel less than for that, that's the information that I needed. That I got all the communication that I needed there in that moment, and it's a clean cut. Especially if it's early, like 2 or 3 dates in. Like, oh no, you shit on the thing that like I'm most passionate about. We're not doing that. And so I think that approach of focusing on the type of person that you want to experience yourself being, and then showing up as that fully in all of your dating interactions. And I will say that has to go both ways. That's not just women showing up and men showing up. It has to go both ways of people showing up, and then you're like, oh yeah, like I'm going to trust my intuition and my instincts here, and I'm going to gather data. And the moment that I've gathered enough data to where I'm just not lighting up over this person, not like from an infatuation love drunk, but like it feels hard a month in, like that's not worth fighting for.
No,
but I think that's the common experience, and that's why it's gotten so discouraging, right? Like
and you on Hinge, Tinder, Bumble, whatever it is, you have access to every eligible single man in this state. If not the country. You were never supposed to have that much access to options.
It's not helpful.
And so you can just...
Too late.
There's too many options. You can just go through and... So, that's the other thing, is like the stakes seem so much lower and higher at the same time. Like, it's like, oh, like... people are more disposable.
Yeah,
like I don't have to try as hard because
right.
you
There's
log
always
back into your
another
dating
option.
app, there's
Yeah.
50 other guys that have swiped on you.
Right.
I think the way that we experience information these days also is doing a disservice. So like I'm on TikTok, I get on there and I see the whatever podcast dipshits on there. And like this divide that you're talking about, it's not real. It's all perceived.
It's not helpful either.
Right? So like, perfect example. My wife, when she and I met, I was getting out of a marriage. I was still in the process of divorce. So I was about to be a single dad with 2 sons.
Yeah.
I was living paycheck to paycheck on a social worker salary, working a job that I hated. I could barely make rent. I had to drive Lyft and illegally Airbnb out a room to cover rent.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So like, on paper, I was not a high value man. Okay. My wife, well established in a very high paying career.
Sure.
Professionally, had her shit together. Financially, had her shit together. Owned her own home. Cars paid for outright. No debt whatsoever. Had lovely friends and relationships. And for the longest time, it was like, why are you with me? Like, what in the world do I have to offer you? Like, and I had to, like, so that divide of like on paper, she never should have given me the time of day, right? I never, like, she was out of my league, right? But when you just see somebody as a human being,
right,
and you get past the transactional aspects of a relationship, like, I think she saw the potential in me, right? Of like, she kind of took all of these circumstances into consideration, and saw something in me that she valued higher than what I could contribute at the time monetarily,
right?
Which I think has worked out really well for both of us, right?
Right.
That we ended up with each other and we're building a life and continuing. We have a daughter now, and we have this future that we're envisioning with one another. So like. But if you only are paying attention to what you see on like these inflammatory podcasts and social media posts and things like that about what women want and what men want and all of these things, like you're just defeating yourself from the get-go. Like that
I agree.
That's not the norm.
Yeah.
I like I sat with women who are dating and they're just like, yeah, it'd be nice if he made this much money, but like also, I just need somebody who's going to treat me well.
Yeah, right. You can sense immediately, and I'll therapize you a little bit, where like you clearly have like good morals, good character. Here we are sitting here, right? Like you have this amazing practice and all that stuff. You're clearly a good dad. You're speaking highly of your wife now, right? Like you might agree, like and I don't know if it's just a women thing because I'm only a woman, but like I think we can immediately intuitively sense like a humble, secure man. And it doesn't matter what you have on paper, because it's almost better if you sense that when a man on paper maybe has something that right, like what you had going on, because I think that there's a lot of ego can get involved. But I think like we can immediately sense when there's just like humility and like empathy, or like I don't know, if you
like
agree.
A good person.
It's like so interesting.
Well, and
not ego driven. I know it's like it's hard to.
I didn't say all of that for you guys to float my boat, but
no, I mean it though. Like that's just a genuine response of like a man who's like disarming, or any partner, right? We don't have to gender it.
I'm glad that you bring it up that it goes both ways.
Oh
because I hear from guys a lot that like they're on these dating apps and it's just like out the gate, all of these financial expectations placed on them.
It's crazy.
Of like,
especially these days.
Almost like these women are treating them like it's a sugar daddy, sugar baby arrangement just to go out on a date with them. I'm just like, when did that
it's a
start?
whole mess.
Like when did it like,
it's an epidemic.
Yes,
what I'm saying.
I don't.
That's why I don't have the solution, right?
Well, I mean,
what's going on here?
The solution is to decide. I mean, part of the solution. I don't pretend to have all of the answers, but like, just know how you want to experience yourself.
Yeah.
And if you do not want to experience yourself as being treated like a transaction, then the moment that comes out, you address it.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah.
You communicate it.
You get the data, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What also comes up with that is to like, you how you said, like, how do you want to experience yourself? Like, securely.
Yes.
Like looking for a secure attachment, but like having a secure attachment with yourself.
Yeah, both, right.
Yeah.
And on the front end,
yeah,
if you are going into these dating experiences securely attached to yourself, knowing yourself and being safe with yourself to where you're not going to compromise, you're not going to abandon yourself to people please, you're not going to capitulate some part of yourself for the sake of like getting this person to like you, like that's the recipe for success going into dating experiences. You speed up the inevitable. So again, I think this is maybe do you know what I'm about to say, Ryan? The best dating advice that I've ever given and ever received was
please do tell.
Well, be yourself because you're going to show up eventually.
Be yourself because you're going to show up eventually.
So true.
Yeah.
It's so
and
true.
you just speed up the inevitable.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Totally.
like instead of waiting 6 to 9 months or 6 to 9 weeks into a relationship to really show up as myself with my preferences, my likes, my dislikes, and my opinions, just lead with yourself.
I think maybe that's the problem, right? Like we all have to be really investing in ourselves.
Yeah,
to
they're not.
Be a good partner.
They want someone else to
be a good
fix
person
them.
for yourself. Guys, sign up for services, right?
Yeah.
Figure out how you want to experience yourself and invest in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the investment, we didn't even get around to any of the investments, but like that's the crux of it is like, yes, I need to discover and answer the question, how do I want to experience myself in all of these different domains?
Yeah.
How do I want to experience myself as a physical being, an emotional thinking being, a spiritual or inspirational being, a relational being, a romantic being, a vocational working, producing being, a financial being, and a recreational being? How do I want to experience myself in all of these 8 domains? But then you have to take the next step and start developing behaviors or investment strategies that bring you in line with those values.
Right.
And then you go into your relationships already living out those values because I say this a lot of times with married couples of like the version of yourselves that you fell in love with existed before you knew each other.
Right.
And so the way that I was investing in myself prior to me meeting my wife was the version of me that she fell for. So why would I change that once we get into a relationship to try and appease her or satisfy her?
That's a lot of effort.
Right. Well, it's a bait and switch. And so what I don't need to do is I don't need to curate myself into the version of her that I think that she needs to get her to like me.
Right.
Because then I can't sustain that.
Yeah.
I had a client one time who was dating a girl, and she made it clear on the front end that her partner needed to go to the gym and her partner needed to make a certain amount of money. And he lied about his job. He would like lie about going to the gym. Like he would literally leave in the morning.
Yeah, he would. He wanted to keep
take
the girl.
his gym bag.
He wanted to keep the girl.
And then he would go sit at a coffee shop.
He would
go sit at a coffee shop.
That makes me
and
sad.
then come home.
Though.
Yeah, like he was just lit, and so like it was just so unsustainable.
Yeah,
and then he would wonder like why his relationships never worked out. And I'm like, dude, because you're not, you can't be someone else for very long.
Right.
You're gonna show up eventually.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
no, I love that one.
I know Ashley, you need to go in the next 2 or 3 minutes, and so we can try to wrap it up here.
Yeah.
This has been so
fun.
Cool.
I love to yap.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I say that too.
Great at yapping.
Yeah.
I know. I always say like my biggest problem with yapping is like sometimes I go on a TED Talk in sessions. You know those rare times when it's your time to pipe up.
Yeah.
That's my classic. I have certain things I repeat to patients all the time.
Well, you've heard like 90% of everything that I say in therapy in this session.
No, exactly. I'm like, sorry. I'm always like, oh shit, that was But no, I do love to yap, and this is what I love though, like easy, natural, like clinical yapping, where it's like I don't know, I could just go on and on, honestly. So I've really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm so glad that you decided to participate in my little idea here.
I love that you presented the opportunity.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens in the future, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this was fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Emily Thorndike.
You're welcome.
Please have safe travels. Enjoy the rest of your time in the city.
I will.
All right. And thank you, Ashley, for making time once again.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.